As we wait for a break in this case, a global security expert says ransom abductions in the U.S. are rare. And even when they do happen, they usually don't involve some of the factors that we're seeing in this case.
Joe Dana is also joining us now from Tucson to explain how the location and the circumstances of this case would make it a difficult crime to pull off even for career criminals. Joe?
Caribe, I'm about 10 minutes from that neighborhood of Nancy Guthrie. We're here in the Catalina foothills here in northeast Tucson. Scott Stewart of Touchstone, a global firm that specializes in ransoms and kidnappings. He says, while rare, there are dozens of kidnappings along the U.S.-Mexico border annually, but they typically involve Mexican Americans or Americans with deep ties to Mexico. He says the ransom amounts are usually $5,000 to $10,000, and most ransom cases are not reported to police. Now I want to show you this map. We've talked about the winding road where Nancy Guthrie's home sits. There is considerable space between lots, less of a chance of cameras to capture cars in the act of a crime, but a higher likelihood of neighbors noticing people or cars that may be out of place leading up to the attack. And here's the thing, Stewart says, planning and surveillance is key for criminals to create what they call an attack cycle, a predictable time they would strike. The two most direct options for hypothetical abductors to leave Arizona would be 70 miles straight south on Highway 19 to the Mexico border or 100 miles to the east to New Mexico. Stewart says ransom criminals would need to be very confident they can get around unnoticed before, during, and after an attack.
You know, we saw in the kidnapping of Sidney Riso, many years ago, who was the CEO of Exxon. He lived in a very nice neighborhood in New Jersey. And in that case, there was actually a house under construction across from his residence that the kidnappers used for surveillance. They have to have some way of conducting that surveillance so that they can get the pattern of life down, of the target.
And Stewart of Touchstone says another possible motive, ideology. The fact the victim in this case is directly related to a member of the news media in this politically charged environment is something you can't rule out as a potential motive. He does say, though, ideological kidnappings typically involve some sort of manifesto. Back here at the Catalina foothills in northeast Tucson, we have not seen any evidence of a manifesto. If there is other communication that the FBI has had with the suspects, well, it's not been made public for now. Mark and Caribe.